if Judaism could say that any one of its prime members and the first member of Judaism is Avram, is the first of all Jews. If they could say that Abraham knew anything and wrote anything, published anything, taught anything that was contrary or before or different to what the ancient Africans of the Nile Valley was teaching, then I'm willing to succumb and say, yes, it is valid. It's a religion all by its own and started on its own. It started in Asia as an Asiatic black men's organization. You listen to Asiatic black men, because listen to it very carefully. There's a lot of jive going down by a crazy man who following another crazy man who is dead, that's saying that when I die, I'm going to come back white, and I'm going to get straight here, and I'm going to have a narrow nose, and I'm going to have thin lips. If there's a God and does that to me, we're going to have a fight. Now, he probably wants to be that way because he's no different than Michael Jackson in his thinking. Now, let me get it straight now. Let me get down here. If anyone plus the rabbi can show me any Jewish writing before that attributed to a man that said born in the city of Goshen in Egypt, and as I remind you, each time I go to Egypt, I make sure that it hasn't gone anywhere, that it is still in Africa, because the day it leaves and goes somewhere else, I'm not going there. Now, it is a fact then that we see that the first piece of writing attributed to the Hebrews is a book called Exodus, not even Genesis.
In his lecture, Understanding Ma'at, Dr. Yosef Ben-Jochannan begins by firmly asserting that African spiritual systems, especially those of ancient Egypt, predated Judaism. He challenges the widely accepted biblical timeline by pointing out that the Egyptian spiritual worldview existed thousands of years before the Torah. He argues that the belief system later found in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were influenced by African religious concepts, but stripped of their original meaning and context. Dr. Ben critiques the tendency to view the Bible as the first or only source of spiritual knowledge, stating that this undermines Africa's rich spiritual heritage. One of the central myths Dr. Ben-Jochannan takes issue with is the biblical story of Adam and Eve, particularly the idea of sin being introduced into the world through Eve's actions. He categorically rejects this notion and instead explains that the pain experienced during childbirth is not a result of divine punishment, but a natural biological process. By doing so, he separates myth from science and encourages his audience to apply logic rather than accept religious stories at face value. His point is clear. Belief without understanding leads to mental enslavement, especially when those beliefs are rooted in foreign ideologies.
Because Genesis, and the rabbi had to admit, is an afterthought. The 4 books of the Torah was written before Rabbi Agrippa and Rabbi Hillel finally found out that, whoa, we're talking about leaving Egypt and we're not in the world yet. So that the Council of Jamia, they decided to write a book called Genesis, the word meaning beginning. And so they had to find a chumped up beginning and base it upon some craziness, and therefore we have adopted it. Look, I taking a Sunday to mess up with you and your religion. Now, but I'm going to do it, continue. See, you're going to leave before I leave. Now, you see, the truth got a funny way to rub you, and it rub you the bad way, because most of you women here, if I say that the Bible is garbage, you get mad. But I will prove it with one other thing. The Bible got you as the one who started sin. Eve caused sin for the forbidden fruit. Now, you know, most of you believe it. Most of you believe that Eve started, and if she didn't start it, she cooperated with Adam. And most of you believe that's why you have pain, those of you who are mothers, give birth to your child. You know why you believe it? You're stupid. And why you stupid? You see the baby when it's in your hand. Now you notice that the baby got a head at least 5-inch diameter. And you know you got your vagina isn't 5-inch. Otherwise you need a camel or elephant. So now you know that the reason you have pain giving birth is the head. And you know when you look at that shoulder, and that's 11 to 12 inches, you know that if your vagina was at least 5, it ain't 12. Now you know definitely why you got the pain. Ain't got nothing to do with any sin. Do you see my logic there? I'm trying to reason with you in everywhere possible that you could understand the truth I'm dealing with. Now you may hear something else from the minister, from the rabbi, from the imam, different to that Friday, Saturday, and today. But you notice that they don't discuss anything, that they don't break down anything to you, because if they break it down, if they give you dates, you're not going back next Friday, next Saturday, next Sunday, and that sucker ain't gonna have no money. Now, you understand, I had to stop to break that down to you, because you may like me in one way, but now when I come in close to your Jesus, you know what I mean, or your Allah, or your Jehovah, now I'm messing with you. I plan to mess with you because I want you to get straight. All right. Now, when the rabbi, as others, talk, and when we see here the philosophical and ethical masterpiece, we must understand the philosophical, and everybody must deal with philosophy. Any group of people are together because of philosophical reasons. You don't have to write it down in a book. It's automatic that if a group of people stay together, there is a philosophical basis for their being together. It's equally a given that there are ethical reasons, or at least an ethical reason, for their being together. They set up a set of morals, and that set of morals become a code. And each person is expected to behave according to, excuse me, his position or her position within that compact of people. Now, no one can deny this. Thus, when I said that is a lie, that the Greeks were the first to deal with philosophy, it didn't need any great thinker to come up with a conclusion. Since the Greeks were not the first people in the world that we know of, then they living together philosophically could not have been the first. And therefore, their writing about it could not have been the first philosophical concept when the ancient people along the Nile, Ethiopian, Egyptians, the people of Tamari, let's call them by the modern name, the Sudanese and different things, Uganda, because that's the beginning of the Nile, is in Uganda and Ethiopia. Those people had already written, and written in terms of their theosophical beliefs and philosophical beliefs. We can go back to the Twa and the Hutu people, the smallest people on the face of the earth, and we could see them presenting long before writing as we know it, going back into the archaeological forms. We could see the Twa and Hutu people, and more so not only in the centroid part of East Africa, but we saw them and still see them at the southern tip of Africa, which they themselves called at one time Monomotapa, before we are now hearing Azania and Azania and the next name. No, the southern tip, they divide. Azania and no, there's another name. Northwest Namibia. I still don't call them that, because they have African people have changed the name from Monomotapa because the white folks said that the Monomotapa, the ruler of Monomotapa, was a bad man and he had killed the missionaries. He was a good man. And the name should go back to remind young Africans of that part of the world one of the obligations they have. And one of the obligations they have is to learn how to kill white folks. It is equally your obligation, because one day you're going to have to do it. I heard you are now satisfied that half of the beaters have been convicted. So at least we got half of justice. So Rodney King will get a few $1 million, which he's unable to spend because he's like a jellyfish, talking about we have to come together. And now we are all entrepreneurs, so we don't mind about Rodney King. And everybody was worried if the brothers are going to challenge the police and open arms, since the police have shown the amount of military hardware they have in hand. If they were found innocent, I don't think the brothers in California were stupid enough to attack the police in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is not the only city in California. You attack any place where the cracker was and is. Maybe the White House. It doesn't matter. A cracker is a pecker. Now let me go on again, because some of you may believe that an Egyptologist should not think as I do, that all I should be talking about Egypt, but I have to bring in, you see, the reason I am an Egyptologist is because I know the past and I know how it affects the present. Now, let's continue. Rabbi Seltzer, and he has since been banished out of Great Neck, having been mistreated by Yosef Ben-Jochannan. Rabbi Seltzer had failed to recognize that the foundation of Judaism, which is the foundation of Christianity, which is the foundation of Islam, because that's the manner in which these three religions, and you could call it what you want, started. First, there was an Abraham, then there was a Jesus, the Christ created by Pantius and Botius, and then there was a Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who dealt with this term God in the Arabic language, and that language is no different than any language. Whether you call the deity in Arabic Allah, or you call the deity God, or you call the deity Dio, it still means the deity, the male form of the deity. Of course, it is a problem by which Abraham and all of them had. It seems as if that the Hebrews or Jews, whatever name we want to call them, had gotten afraid of their women, as they did with the Adam and Eve story. And they finally decided to deny their mama the proper place she held in world reality. She had given birth to the bastards and should have turned her foot when they were coming out and snapped their neck. But like most women, they were being kind and allowed these monsters to grow up to the point of writing a book and taking her out of it. So the Jews could not deal with a goddess any longer, because they couldn't deal with their mama, much less their woman that they were sleeping with. So they had to remove the woman out of the picture, and she could no longer be the deity. In the case of the Christian, the Christian male could not deal with the woman either. So therefore, Jesus' mother, who was the mother of God according to the Christians, had to be removed from her position of goddess. The Christian man who had lost his testicles and everything else, and if he had it, wasn't functioning properly. And therefore, the woman must have shamed him by performing, and he couldn't respond. And therefore, it was necessary at the Nicene Conference to remove Mary from an honored position that they had copied in terms of Isis. Isis had fulfilled her sexual obligation to Osiris. She had given Osiris sex to the point of a child. But what had happened after Osiris was killed by this evil brother, Typhon, Isis found herself unable to produce a child with a dead man. This is the situation with most of our Christian folks, because many of us are having sexual intercourse with the Lord. As a matter of fact, all the nuns are married to the Lord Jesus. Of course, after he's failed, they come to me, and thank you. Or someone have been do what the Lord cannot do, because the Lord did not do it on earth. You all said at 33 years. I mean, that's stop reasoning this thing. At 33 years of age, you said that a man come down in a polygamous country where everybody having an extra wife, or 10 or 5 or 50 or more, and that man didn't touch anybody at all, that he went to a big wedding and saw the people having a fun, and he sat up there, make sneaky Pete, wine you call it, and had a good time. When everybody was grabbing on some woman, he was right there just watching. And every time you see him with 12 men. Now it's up for you to draw your own conclusion and not blame me for this. You've got to use your reasoning. Ask, if you had asked to see at least one of the 18 books that were taken out your Bible, then you would understand that that was a lie. That J.C. was going to bed with Martha. J.C. had thrown a little boy off the roof, because you would have read the 18 books, and you would have read the Aquarian Gospel, and you would have seen the other side of the life of Jesus, that your minister and rabbi, and what a prophet or whatever they call themselves, had denied you. You would have seen that he acted as a normal man. He acted as a normal man in the synagogue when he whipped asses one day over short-changing the money box. You would have seen that, but you can't see it. You're still mad. I could look in some of your face. You're paining. You're hurting. You're hurting because I'm talking about a man that had sex with that woman as your man have with you, if he's much of a man. Now, but you can't have that. Because since sex is sexual, you can't have Jesus getting laid. Because you know sex is bad. Because your sex is messed up. You believe everybody's sex is messed up. So J.C. couldn't have had sex. Yet God made the penis and the vagina. You know, if sex is bad, God is responsible for it. He made Adam with clay and whatnot. And he attached a penis to Adam. Obviously, it was at least half Adam he made before he put the penis on. Because he got to get, either whether he come down or go up, at midsection he slapped the penis in there. In the case of Eve, he must have done it the same way. Even though he took the flesh from Adam at Robert Adam's rib cage. I mean, you know, you're getting mad. But am I correct? Is my reasoning logical? Is your belief logical? I mean, look at yourself. You don't have to take off your clothes now. Just think back this morning how you look. And see if I'm not describing the way you look. Right? All right. I mean, then you know I'm right. But you can't say I'm right because the cracker wrote a book and put it in your hand with all kind of pictures. And you know it was you in the picture, because you know you're white. Now, understanding this clearly, we have to understand And don't fail, because when I went up here to Michigan the other night, I spoke for 2 fraternities and a sorority, joined with another group to sponsor me. And I told them when I got there, I said, I'm very, very happy that you all brought, but you all ain't going to feel good about me when I leave. Because I'll have to talk with you and them Greeks and them freaks. Because the truth isn't varied by virtue of the money in the collection plate. The truth is the truth irrespective of who sponsors me. And you're going to hear it. And then I told them this, I was brought there to speak, listen to it, a conference of black male on white campuses. And the conference had at least 30% crackers. So I asked them, what are these crackers doing in here? This is a conference for black males on white campuses. And I see all of these cracker women. I said, are these your women? I don't know. I'm asking. I didn't say the word. And I asked, which one of you white women going with this, which black man in here? That put a little chill in the community, because a few of them didn't want to know who they were going with, so they couldn't deal with it. But anyhow, the thing that happened to people is that we are accustomed to all of these frauds. And when the fraud hit us on our head, we cannot make the change. And we condemn the person who comes to us and say, here, there's a fire. See, the smoke didn't come by itself. The smoke is coming from a fire. Let us search for the fire. And you who are dealing with the smoke said, no, it is smoke, but no fire. This is a special smoke. It comes from a white man. And if a white man said there's no fire, even though there's smoke, there ain't no fire. I came to you to explain that the reason we can be lulled to sleep with a half decision in the Rodney King case is no difference than we can be lulled to sleep Friday at the mosque, Saturday at the synagogue, and Sunday at church. Because we got a half of the truth. A half of the truth that started in Africa, and the reason is that we are not willing to deal with the truth. For those of us who see brothers and sisters, whether from Haiti or from the west coast of Africa, practicing the worship of God, voodoo, have difficulty even respecting the religion voodoo. We have followed, and any comedian goes on the radio could make joke about voodoo and voodoo. And there's no objection to us. Nobody writes into the editor or to anybody. But let somebody come and make joke about Jesus, Mary, Joseph, Allah, and Jehovah, and you will send a ton of letters overnight. The fact is, if I said Jesus, Allah, and so forth, I heard no grimaces. But let me say Unkulunkulu, the god of the Amazulu. Let me say Ngai, the god of the people of the Agakuyu of Kenya, and so on and so on. But even let me say, other than that, let me say that the ginkgo tree is God. And immediately you got a word for me. I'm an aminist.
Dr. Ben further explains that every group of people that exists over time develops a moral code and a system of philosophy to guide their behavior. Therefore, it is only logical that African people who lived long before the Greeks had developed systems of thought that could be classified as philosophy. He challenges the Eurocentric narrative that credits the Greeks as the originators of philosophy, making it clear that African civilizations, particularly Egypt, were the foundation upon which Greek thought was built. A key part in Dr. Ben's message involves the role of women in African cosmology. He asserts that African spirituality honored women as deities and central figures in creation, a stark contrast to the religious systems that emerged later, particularly those influenced by what he calls the Jewish concept of divinity. He believes that the removal of the woman from the divine status in later religions stems from misogyny. In African systems, the woman is not only honored but celebrated, and this balance in gender recognition was essential to the understanding of Ma'at, truth, balance, and order. Dr. Yosef Ben-Jochannan concludes by emphasizing the importance of independent learning and critical thinking. He urges black people to use their common sense and question religious myths instead of accepting them blindly. He warns that limiting one's spiritual education to the Bible alone is intellectually dangerous. To truly seek truth, Dr. Ben encourages the study of all religious texts, including those not affiliated with the Bible. Ultimately, understanding Ma'at is a powerful call for black people to reclaim their spiritual roots, question imposed narratives, and rediscover truth through logic, research, and a reconnection with African knowledge systems.